everyone, Jessica here, welcome back to my channel. So in this video we're going to be looking at Simply Cards and Papercraft issue 238. Again, I'm not sure when this one came out. The next one, which is the Butterfly Florals. This one's out the 12th of January, so this would have been December's issue. So I'm sure you guys have seen the magazine already. So within this set here, let's have a look, we get 21 stamps plus a Pink Fresh Studio stamp and die set. So by the looks of it, we get you know, a little bit of script there, some sort of background pieces. We get a couple of flowers with the sentiments, and then we do get this really lovely butterfly stamp there with, I'm guessing, the coordinating die. Also bits that you can download as well. These two cards here are actually two of my cards. That's the commission that I had, and this is to do shaker backgrounds, which I had a lot of fun creating those cards. So we won't look through the magazine again because you guys have probably already seen it. And then in this one we got the Lisa Horton Crafts 2 items here. So we've got the beautiful DL embossing folder. You can see a giant embossing folder. So I'm having some ideas of what we're going to do with this. And then we also have some sentiments here as well. So we've got with, sending and love there to be able to add a sentiment onto your card. So there's lots of things that you could do with embossing folders, tons of techniques, but I'm trying to think of something maybe that I haven't necessarily done before, something a little bit different. I'm trying to think. One of the things I do like to do with embossing folders is to colour it in. So run it through a die cutting machine and then colour in with alcohol markers, because it does give you that really nice no line colouring with that bit of embossed detail. Then I thought about possibly using some coloured pencils, because I do have some Malteser colouring pencils, but I'm wondering whether, because you can add ink inside your embossing folders, so literally you just open it up, you literally just swipe your ink over it and then run it through the die cutting machine. But I'm actually wondering whether we could be a little bit more precise than that. I'm wondering whether to do this side, because then we can add the ink onto what would be going on the inside of this. I'm just trying to think, or I suppose we could do this side and actually go in there, and then that'll be on the raised bit. So maybe that's the best option. So I'm wondering how this is going to work. So I'm going to get some inks out. I'm going to get a brush, a little bit of water. We can trim down a panel to fit in here, and we're going to have a go and see whether we can really paint into this to really get that kind of detail that we want. Okay, so I've got everything ready. I've got a piece of watercolour card here. This is the Creative Expressions watercolour card. So I've just trimmed that down just to be roughly the right size. I've got a piece of kitchen paper here. I've got my brush. I've got my mat. A little bit of water to clean my brush on. And then so the colours we're going to use, we've got a bit of Twisted Citron and Rustic Wilderness, obviously for our leaves and stem. Then I've gone with Shaded Lilac and Wilted Violet. Obviously just very kind of classic colours for a flower like this. Rather than kind of going with anything too kind of different. We're just going to sort of go with this and really see how this works. So again, I'm not really 100% sure if this is going to come out how I would like it to. Whoops. But it's nice to kind of try different things. So I've just smushed it a little bit onto my mat. Let's just get my brush wet. Let's start with our Twisted Citron. And what I want to do is kind of just paint into these areas, and instead of then adding water into this, we're going to add the water and spray it onto our piece of cardstock. Hopefully that will stop it kind of splitting out everywhere, really, for lack of a technical term, because sometimes it can be a little bit messy. But I'm hoping maybe this way we'll be able to get a little bit more of a controlled look here. Let's come in with just a little bit of, you know, a little bit of shadow here again, just to make it a tiny bit, you know, realistic, I guess. Of course it doesn't have to be realistic, but yeah, just add a little bit of difference, a little bit of sort of definition. Okay, so that looks like all of the kind of green in there, and what we can do afterwards is, if it's not kind of spread quite how we want it to, then you know, we can come back afterwards and kind of just do some touch-ups up when we've put it through the die cutting machine. So let's come in with, again, a little bit of shaded lilac and then wilted violet, again for the same sort of thing. Let me just spray, just because I don't actually currently have any clean pots of water in here at the moment. So again, let's first of all come in with our wilted violet, and what I don't want to do, if I can hopefully avoid it as much as possible, is to mix that in with the green from the leaves, because we don't want it to get muddy. Although again, we're going to try not to add too much water onto our watercolour cardstock, so again it doesn't kind of sort of go everywhere, because again, I have had that happen in the past where it's kind of made just a little bit of a mess, and the problem is when that happens, you can't really see what the design is there, which is a little bit of a shame. It can kind of get lost amongst all the colour and the water and just kind of that sort of technique. So again, let's just, it's not really showing anything. Obviously the shaded lilac is quite a light colour, so we just need to make sure that we're getting into all the areas. Okay, and then so what I'm going to do is, just off to the side, I'm going to spritz my watercolour card. Again, I'm not going to go too heavy, just a few spritzes, so that we can get a nice bit of colour on there. Just make sure it's kind of in the area where we really do need it to be, so that's more in the centre. Okay, so I'm going to have to squish the top of that because I've put it too far at the top. Now I'm not going to turn this around, so we'll both sort of get a surprise when we've run this through my die cutting machine. So for the combination that I use just for my Gemini die cutting machine, I use the Gemini junior plates, but it's literally just the two cutting plates, and then let's run this through. Okay. So let's just pull this out. I'm hoping this has worked, but again, like I said, I'm not, you know, I'm not sure what this is going to turn out like, to be honest. So I haven't turned this around. I'm hoping it's worked. So let's take a look. Okay, well, we can't really see anything because you've got the design on there, but so let's open it up. So, okay, we've got a little bit of colour on there, really not that much. Maybe we didn't really add kind of enough water on there, maybe. So it did, in principle, it did work. What I would recommend is making sure that you do clean your embossing folders up really, really well, so the next time you use it, they don't have any sort of ink and colour and that left on there. So, you know, this has worked, I would say, about 50% of how we really wanted it to. The colour has sort of transferred on there, but again, maybe it just wasn't wet enough to really get that colour to kind of move around on there. So definitely ways of kind of going in and improving this kind of look, but I do think it did work. I would say that it did work, and it's nice just to try and experiment and do something different. So I'm just picking up this colour now. So let's just get some nice amount of water, and you've got a little bit of detailing there just to add a little bit of texture, I guess, from it being pushed through. But yeah, it's almost as if it was just a little too dry, so maybe I wasn't kind of liberal enough with how much water I'd kind of applied. Let's just go a little darker. So I am by no means whatsoever a painter or anything like that. So I'm just going to kind of go with it, really try to stay inside of the design. Let's just bring in a little bit of our rustic wilderness, just again for a little bit of kind of shadow. Let's bring in a little bit more Twisted Citron. Let's just get this is a little bit more vibrancy in there. So I'm just going to go ahead and carry on kind of painting this back in a little bit, and then I'll speed it up and then we'll come back and put our card together. Okay, so this is our finished look. So again, it didn't quite work out how I hoped it would or how I thought it would, but again, it's nice just to experiment a little bit. And again, I think the main kind of problem really was the fact that I didn't kind of water it down enough. I don't think maybe I sprayed enough water on my cardstock. Maybe I should have done a little bit in the embossing folder. Maybe that certainly would have helped. But again, it's a little bit more of an impression, I would say. You don't really have tons of detail, but by running it back through the embossing folder again, it has obviously re-raised some of those details there, so you can kind of differentiate small bits. But yeah, it's definitely softer and more of an impression of what the embossing folder is. And then adding splatter and splattering over something is a great way of hiding any kind of imperfections. Maybe if you had a spot of colour somewhere that you didn't want it, adding splatter is a really great way of kind of disguising that. And again, it makes it as if it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. Or adding splatter just on top of it. It's a really great tool as a kind of just in case you need it type of thing. So let's get a card base for this. So we've got a DL card base here. I'm going to pull out one of my die sets here. I mean, we could just go in for a scalloped edge, just something nice. Let's see if this is big enough. We've done a big enough panel here to actually die cut this from. It might be a little tight. It's a very, very close call on this. So if you think that you do want to die cut from your panel, just make sure it is big enough. So let's go in, let's just grab a little bit of tape here, hold this in place, and then I'm going to run this through my die cutting machine again. So what might be a good idea if you are going to run it through the embossing folder again is to possibly die cut it first with whatever die you're going to be using and then do it, because obviously putting it through again is going to just flatten it very, very slightly. Right, so here we have our card base and we have our panel. So what I think this definitely needs something. I mean, I do like the white on white. It is quite an elegant sort of look. So maybe we might just leave it. I'm wondering whether to add maybe a little bit of twine around the bottom of it. Maybe we could just do a light colour, nothing kind of too heavy in that sense. So we have that. So again, what you could do then is just colour the card base behind it if you wanted to. But again, I'm really liking actually just the simpleness of this here. Let's get some foam. And these are quite thick foam pads. I don't use them all that often because they are very thick, but they are also just sat here on my desk. So let's put a fair amount on here because you want to make sure that, you know, it's not going to sag by being unsupported. So, but what I do like about these is these are the Chloe Creative Cards ones. They come on a really big roll, but I like it because they've got these really quick release backing pieces. Apologies there, my battery died. Don't remember what I was saying. So I think it was about the backing on the pads. So yeah, it does a really great quick release. So again, a very sort of simple and elegant card, really. You know, there's not sort of too much there going on. So we do have our sentiments as well. Hopefully, these aren't going to be kind of too big for the card. I feel like we could really do with like a smaller, maybe a more delicate die here, or, you know, sentiment. I feel like is it going to be just a touch too big? No, we will do this. Right, what we're going to do is we're going to grab just a scrap here. Yep, so we can get that. Let's just do, let it go that way. Let's just kind of swipe the colour. So this is a smooth cardstock. That's a very juicy ink pad. See if we can just, yeah, get that to go there. I'm just going to dry this quickly with my heat tool. Let's come back in with the shaded lilac just on this side. So we've got a little bit more of a harsh line that side. So it's just a little bit more colour. So you can do this rather than getting your blending brushes and that back out. You know, you can just really swipe that colour across. So there's such a really lovely font. I wasn't 100% that I was going to be really in love with it, but actually that is a really, really nice font here for these dies. And I actually think, yeah, that is a super elegant card there. I love that. And then our sentiment does really stand out nicely. I'm just wondering whether I want to put any like drops on it, any Nuvo drops, but I think actually I'm going to leave it just as it is. Again, very simple, very elegant. You've got that background. Sometimes I think it can be a little bit of a struggle when you've got embossing folders like this, which is an image rather than being a background, like something simple that you can obviously add a focal point on top of. Sometimes I do struggle with really what it is that you're going to do with that, but I think this is a nice example of how you can do this. Again, it's very sort of wishy-washy. It's not you know, lots of definitive detail on there, but yeah, I do think that it gives a really lovely impression if that's how you want to use it. But then also you can, like I said before, colour in with alcohol markers. I've done that quite a bit, and you can get something that's a little bit more realistic, something that's more got that definition in there. But of course, because you're not going to have any outlines, you're going to have more of that no line watercolouring type of look. But I'm really happy with how this has turned out. Again, a very simple and elegant card, which, you know, doesn't always happen for me, but I do always enjoy it when it does. So this was using the can't even remember what it was called. It was just a giant embossing folder here. So this came from Simply Cards and Papercraft. If you did like this video, please give it a thumbs up and help to support my channel. I do have a couple of other magazines as well. So if you haven't subscribed to my channel and you don't want to miss out on when I upload those videos, hit that subscribe button and that notification bell as well. So that's going to be it for this video. So thanks very much for watching and happy crafting.